Welcome, everyone, to Sovereign Community Call, episode 41. This is Ingalandia, head of ecosystem growth with Sovryn, the place to be for your Bitcoin DeFi needs. We've got some awesome news to share with you all, including our circle of tokens, new features for loans, and SIT 48, presented by General Catalyst, their investment proposal. If you know someone from a project that could benefit from collaborating with us, feel free to DM me on Twitter or Discord at Ingalandia. They could be, for example, mobile apps, payment platforms, thought leaders, layer one ecosystems, fund managers, etc. People who hold a lot of Bitcoin and are looking for a secure way to use it. Send them directly to us, and we'll see if there's a possible way we can collaborate. So you know where to find me. Thank you for joining us here. Thank you for sharing in this mission. The guidelines are, if you'd like to speak, toggle the mute button and be patient. We'll get to you. Also note that we periodically pause for any questions you might have. And if you're feeling a little shy, you can post your questions in the general channel in our Discord. However, we love people who participate. We love people who talk to us. This is an open forum, an open discussion. We're not here talking at you. This is a dialogue among fellow sovereign individuals. So with that, let me bring on Edan Yago with strategy.
Hello again, Sovereigns. I'd like to start with a discussion about the state of the market, which is across the board in every which way, everywhere you look, death and destruction. So obviously this is true for the Bitcoin price. It's true for all of crypto. It's true for the stock market. It's true for the bond market. It's starting to be true for consumer expenditures. It's true for inflation. And I think that there is an extremely high likelihood that we are not just entering into a bear market, a Bitcoin bear market, but that we are also entering into the first global recession since 2008, which would also be the first recession that Bitcoin has to weather. And there's the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times, and we certainly have the privilege of living in interesting times. However, those of you who are still here, because some people are not, and that always happens, I think this is an extremely opportune time, extremely exciting time, and for Sovryn in particular, I think this is going to be an extremely important opportunity for us to become the project and move forward towards the type of project and towards the building the kind of thing that we want to build. And the reason I say that is because one of the interesting things that this brings, if indeed we are in a bear market, and I think it's almost undeniable at this point that we are, is that this will also be Sovryn's first bear market. It's a very young project, and we've probably been weathering a bear market now for about 6 months. It's always several months before you realize you're in a recession. And the difference, between the projects that are able to weather these downturns and the projects that are not, is huge. The projects that come out of the other side invariably become leaders in the next wave. And Sovryn will come out on the other side. We have a committed team of developers. We have the resources and the budget. And most importantly, we have a community of Sovryns who are dedicated to the project for the long term and for what the project hopes to achieve, rather than being attached to the momentary price of the SOV token. And I think that as a result, this is a very opportune time for us to prove our mettle. The best communities are forged in a shared difficulty, and I think bear markets are difficult, and we're probably all in our different ways experiencing it. Some of us have stock portfolios. Some of us are seeing the value of our salaries become less. Some of us are just seeing it in the people around us. And internally in the community and for Sovryn, there's a lot of people who are primarily into the project for the token, or maybe even believed in the project, in its future and in its goals, but are having a crisis of faith. And some of them are becoming bitter. And we see this in the comments and in various different places. So what's important is that we weather this together, that we see it as the opportunity that it is, and that we grasp this opportunity and realize that what's going to be particularly important in terms of this opportunity is that bull markets are full of noise. And it's very, very difficult for projects that are focusing on fundamentals and are not entering into various types of games in order to juice the short term to stand out in the fervor of noise that is the bull market. Bear markets are signal. And so it is up to us now to prove that we are signal. We are Sovryn. But it will also be much easier for us to do that because we are signal. And as the noise is down, the signal will find it easier and easier to shine through. So what do I expect? I don't know. I can't predict any better than anyone else on this call. Predicting the future is hard. But I think we should be aware of the fact that this could be a long bear market. It could be a particularly severe bear market. And in many ways, a more severe bear market could prove even better for us for exactly that reason. Because now is the time for us to focus on building the best product we can, making sure it's delightful, not because there's a bull rush, but because it is providing real utility under any circumstance. It is an opportunity for us to see that the usage that we're getting in our system and the growth in the usage that we're getting of the protocol is purely down to its fundamental value rather than hype. And now is an opportunity for us to stand out. It is also an opportunity for us to do some of the things which are harder to do in harvest season. When a bull market exists, we need to try and harvest as quickly as possible and grow as quickly as possible. But now we can consolidate. It can take a little bit more time. In particular, I think what we should be focusing on is building out those tools which are going to make it easier for those of you who are here to participate in the project, to advocate for the project, to become more Sovryn yourselves, and to become more part of Sovryn, for us to build out the community. And that could be things like having meetups in different cities and for you guys to help host them. It could be creating a series of advocates, and it could be creating new community-driven circles. We already have an example of this in the Circle of Tokens, who are doing fantastic work. They were set up just over 2 weeks ago, introduced in the last community call, and have already come forward with a great deal of analysis and recommendations, which I believe very likely there's still additional analysis being done, but I think they have great ideas around how we can more effectively use our treasury in terms of SOV rewards. I think we can set up more such circles around various different things. And so what I would like to do is next week have a community town hall focused on community. And primarily what I hope we can do in that town hall is, rather than having a presentation, having a discussion and understanding, because you guys are here, understanding from you how you would be interested in getting involved, what you think would make it easier for you to get involved, and what would make it easier for you to help other people get involved in Sovryn. Everyone who's an SOV staker, everyone who's a Sovryn now, we could be looking at a 2-year bear market, but these 2 years are when we can be the guerrillas advocating for Sovryn, making it different and stand out from all of the other projects which don't have the type of community that luckily we have, united by a shared sense of mission and a shared sense of purpose. With that, I think we'll also be able to introduce someone new to that town hall. And we'll introduce him a little bit today, Wayne, who's come on board to help lead adoption. We went through what may be the most grueling process of selection Sovryn has ever performed in trying to bring on someone new. And I'm extremely excited that we have found someone who I think is not just Sovryn, but comes with a wealth of experience. And he'll tell you guys a little bit about that when we get to the adoption section. And then finally, of course, before we handing this on to talk about the many things that are being done and some of the updates that have happened recently, we also have the proposal from GC, which I think is a huge vote of confidence in Sovryn and in Sovryn's future with a long-term vision, and represents a new additional sort of institutions who are joining our community as well. And so I'd encourage all of you to vote. I think there are many eyes on this vote, and we should try and make sure that the level of participation here is even higher than it usually is on Sovryn votes. And so with that, thank you, Ingemar, and I'm handing this back to you.
Okay, great. We have one question already that we can address right now from Aaron in general. He says, once passed, meaning SIP 48, will GC start work tomorrow or wait till Monday? What will the first days look like, basically?
Actually, I'd like to, if Armando is on the call, and I see he is, do you mind answering the question, Armando?
Sure. So part of the investment, or essentially the investment as a whole, is subject to the decision of Batocracy. So once the vote passes, and it seems right now that it will pass, once it's passed, then we have all of the approvals that we need from our end to conclude the investment. And part of the SIP is that there is a company incorporated in the BVI that is essentially the corporate entity that is going to be transacting with GC and other investors. There's an agreement between that entity and the investors, and that needs to be finalized. And then once that's finalized, the vesting contract is created for the investors, and the SOV that they purchase is then transferred to those vesting contracts once the funds have been received to the exchequer. So there's some administrative legal steps that need to be completed in order to finalize that. But once exchequer has approval, we'll be moving forward on all of those aspects, looking to close this deal out probably within the next few days to a couple of weeks, I'd estimate right now.
All right. So thanks for that question, Aaron. Hopefully you got your answer. So next I will move on to product and governance with Mr. Light.
So I'll talk about the governance happenings here, and leave the product updates, which are primarily development related to Ororo this week. So top of mind is the SIP 48 that was introduced by General Counsel that Yago mentioned. This SIP is for GC and a syndicate that they're putting together to purchase a bulk amount of SOV from the sovereign treasury. It's been under discussion for about a week and a half and is currently up for a vote. The vote is actually scheduled to end either during this call or shortly after it, depending on how block times on RSK are doing. And so if you are an SOV staker and haven't checked this out and voted yet, now is the time to do so. So yeah, bitocracy.sovryn.app is where you would go to do that. The next thing to mention is about the circle of tokens, also mentioned by Yago and introduced on the previous community call. They have their own subcategory in the forum now, where they have started a few topics of discussion related to SOV economics and distribution. And most relevant for today's update is that they have submitted their first proposal for review, which proposes to change the liquidity mining rewards given to AMM LPs. So definitely check that out if you're an SOV holder who is interested in how the sovereign treasury SOV is being allocated, and or if you are an LP and you have opinions and perspectives to share regarding this proposed change to the liquidity mining rewards. I want to give a reminder for folks to review the Bitocracy 3.0 SIPs, SIP 46 and SIP 47. These have been up for review since last month, but we're keeping them up for review until they're ready to be finalized. So just want to remind folks that those SIPs are up there. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it and you have an interest in the future of Bitocracy and decentralization of the Sovryn protocol, definitely go check those out. And then also a reminder for folks that Armando did publish the 2021 financial report, which you can review in advance of an upcoming 2022-2023 budget SIP. So definitely check that out if you're interested in how the sovereign treasury has been utilized in 2021. And those are all of the points that I had to cover today. Thank you.
Great. Ororo, I'd like to call you up and share some updates on the tech.
Sure. Thanks, Ingamar. So since the last call, we had a few updates again. The first update was one which was long waited for, which was the release, which allows us to add collateral to our loans. A much needed feature, especially if prices are not faring that well. So now you're finally able to do that. And this update did not come alone, but it came together with a couple of other front-end improvements and new additions, like the intercom integration, for example. So if you haven't checked out the app in a while, you can do so and see what's changed. Then just today, very short before this call started, we had another trading update which introduced limit orders for margin trading, making our limit order release complete for now. Next on the pipeline for us are the transfer of contract ownership to governance, the update of the bridge, which I already mentioned in the past, because we did some changes to save gas and to be able to reduce the fees, the zero beta release, as well as the perp swaps, where I'm not going into further detail, but Vasili can provide more details afterwards if he feels like. Apart from that, we also continued working on fast BTC. We've sort of finished the reclaiming feature, which we built for the case that we have outages in the future, which we do not want to hope for, but so that if it happens in the future, you will be able to retrieve your funds if they were not yet sent, and also other improvements. And we have an audit scheduled for fast BTC on sometime in early June. Now I do not remember the exact date. It might be the 7th. But anyway, so in June the audit is starting. It's going to take a bit more than a month, and afterwards we should feel confident enough to raise our limits considerably. So the 0.1 BTC limits are soon a story of the past. We also continued working on the Sierra SDK as our first MVP SDK, like the first part of the bigger Sovryn SDK, which should allow then third parties like big wallet providers to integrate Zero and hopefully bring a whole lot of new users to Sovryn. The liquidity mining update, which has been in the works for a while, some refactoring work on the front end as well as smart contracts, further work on the graph integration, improvements to the cross-chain flow, the portfolio page, the dApp headers, and all sorts of other improvements. Apart from that, I just want to point out to you one issue we identified on the dApp when it comes to repaying the loan, and that's just in case you stumble upon it and you wonder, if you are trying to close the loan and you would leave behind a very tiny position, like $1 or $2 position, it will try to close the loan completely. And in doing so, trying to get the remaining funds needed for closing the loan completely from you as well. So if you have a $100 loan and you're closing $99, it will try to close $100. And if you do not have $100, the transaction will fail. We are currently changing that so that it's not that confusing and the protocol is not just trying to get more money than you are expecting to provide. But in the meantime, just be aware that you either need to leave behind a position which is still bigger than more or less $7, or close a position completely. All right, and I think that's it from my side today. And just giving the word to Vasili in case he would want to elaborate on the progress.
Yeah, I can. Hi. So we're really getting ready for the mainnet deployment. So that means, for instance, we make sure that there's a good setup of the nodes so that the front-end user interaction is smooth. We ensure that we have the relevant data in the graph so people can query statistics about the perps protocol. And we're also testing the hell out of all kind of combinations of market limit and stop orders in testnet so that all will be smooth on mainnet. Also, we would like to get some help on announcing the perps launch on BNB chain. So if you happen to have any contacts from Binance that could help us with that, please let me or Ingemar know. Okay, that's it from my side, and I will hand back to Ingemar.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Okay, I'll move on to our next person. So Wayne from Adoption, one of our newest Sovryn contributors, and focusing on adoption. Please say hello and anything you'd like to share with the community.
Thanks, mate. Hi, guys. Nice to meet everybody, even if indirectly. But I'm sure we'll kick off some more personal introductions and conversations soon. As Yago mentioned, I've just started sinking the teeth in quite quickly, though. Looking forward to working with everybody, especially the community members here. A little bit maybe on my background. I bring with me a decade and a half of leading teams in marketing, media, digital, data and analytics across tech industries and digital agencies, with a very strong focus on building brands and brand awareness in market, and driving growth for kind of both enterprise and startup organizations. On that, I've worked for some pretty big companies in Australasia, managing budgets in the hundreds of millions across consumer regions. And the last couple of years, I think I've found a niche where I've worked with startups of all stages, in particular early stage startups, and driven them through pretty rapid growth phases, and even into multi-billion sales processes. And in the last couple of years, I've ended up in cryptocurrency, the geek in me has always loved emerging technology, and I've followed the market passively for some time. So it was amazing to move into the crypto environment. I've had a couple of years in centralized, working in kind of centralized exchange in crypto. But in the background, I've really been delving into DeFi, decentralization, and playing around with all the protocols I can get my hands on. So undoubtedly, I can say this for certain, I'm more excited about jumping into this role than I have any role in my career. I think, as soon as I saw the Sovryn website and the Sovryn ecosystem a couple months ago when I first talked to Yago and co, it really stood out to me, and I immediately thought this protocol should be absolutely massive in market and DeFi. DeFi on Bitcoin blockchain indirectly, the absolute breadth of features, hearing Yago's vision for the company and for creating sovereign individuals in general, and then being on the Discord for a while and seeing such a highly active and engaged community. This particular business protocol really has stood out to me, so I'm absolutely stoked to be on board. And I'm looking forward to working with all the contributors to help kind of grow the brand and drive some growth, help out promoting the features. I'm very much looking forward to working with the community as well. So working with community members, collaborating with community members, learning off community members. I'm going to jump into community channels very actively from now on. So feel free to tag me, have a conversation. We'll jump into the forums. I'll have a lot to learn off you guys, and I'd love some collaboration and input as well. So it's a little bit about me, but stoked to be on board. Thank you for having me here. I think from adoption perspective, in terms of updates, I've only just started, but let me give it a shot at the updates and getting involved very quickly, working with the team on planning and strategy for the coming months and the rest of the year, how we can really sink our teeth in and help achieve these goals that Sovryn and the Sovryn community want to get to. Putting some planning around the upcoming release of the Zero Whitelist and working with Vasili on the Perpetual Futures campaign. So those are two big focuses of mine and of the team. Delving into the kind of brand project and some of the front end redesign UX projects. And the team continues to post amazing content on the wiki throughout the forum. It's been great to be part of this investment SIP. So getting settled in very quickly, and I look forward to chatting to community members in the coming weeks, months, whatever it may be.
Thanks very much, Wayne. It's a pleasure to have you on board. After Wayne came on board, I also discovered that he's a fellow South African. So
accent's a bit diluted now,
Yeah. You and I both. All right, back to you, Ingalandia.
Awesome. Just curious, Wayne, is this the first DAO that you have worked with?
First DAO I've contributed to. I've followed DAOs for a while. On kind of been on Discord channels galore and groups for a while, and as I said, been playing around with a lot of protocols. But it is the first DAO I am a direct contributor into.
Awesome. Very, very cool to know, and very interested in how your experience is as you onboard with this sort of remote collective project.
It's been amazing thus far. Very, very, very welcoming, intelligent group of people, and I like the hustle and the quick way of working. So.
All right, fantastic. So, as for me, what I can share is Sovryn is taking the direction of ideating a mobile banking application platform where users will have access to all of the DeFi protocols of Sovryn, to interact with the protocols permissionlessly, with the addition of features that involve on and off ramping from fiat and basically the ultimate card experience for Bitcoin users. And we're in the process of speaking to potential providers who can help us build that app, that banking platform. And that process is still in the planning phases. I have a bubble chart of the user flow, but I'm not sure if it's too early to share that because it's pretty fresh. I don't know, Iago, if you have an opinion on that. Maybe I should save it for later when we have the partner signed.
I think as it becomes relevant, we can talk about it more.
Okay, sounds good. I will also be present at Consensus 2022 in the second week of June in Austin. And if I'm not speaking there, I'll definitely be speaking at some side events around Bitcoin DeFi. And I was also invited to a talk hosted by Dystopia Labs, and they're having a remote conference, and I'll be doing a presentation there on Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. So just keep an eye on that. And finally, I would like to introduce the Circle of Tokens so that you can maybe walk us through the forum threads that you've recently posted. So Sacro, Deseroy,
Yeah.
or Bananas, any of you available to maybe screen share and just walk us through the ideas that you had in mind regarding liquidity mining rewards?
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Sacro. I'm sorry I cannot share my screen at the moment because I'm on my phone. But I have prepared a small write-up for you guys. If you don't know me, I'm a community member and as of recently, the head of the Circle of Tokens. The Circle of Tokens is the first Sovryn circle that came directly from the Sovryn community. Our goal is to use the Sovryn subgraph to analyze data around the Sovryn ecosystem and to make it available to Bitocracy and the Exchequer. We hope that this information can make decision-making and governance better and easier. We also want to use a data-driven approach to distribute liquidity in the AMM pools more efficiently and also improve SUV tokenomics. We have posted some articles in the forum recently. Please check them out if you want to know more about our work. I would like to mention that our circle has no decision-making power. We only compile data, analyze it, and pass it on to the Exchequer and the Bitocracy. If we see problems or opportunities, we draw attention to them and suggest changes. Recently, we have set up our first proposal. We have analyzed the AMM pool data. We have dealt with questions like, what is the liquidity situation in the pools? How much volume and return do the individual pools generate? Where are the SUV rewards invested wisely? And where are we burning valuable SUV every week without any benefit to the protocol? I would now like to briefly discuss our first proposal. This is for the SUV rewards for liquidity mining in the AMM pools. The data I refer to can be read in the forum. In the future, when the subgraph is publicly available, Bitocracy should also be able to verify this data. Unfortunately, this is not yet possible. The most important metric for our proposal, besides others, is how much reward cost do we have per weekly trade volume. I will mention these stats for each pool. For more data, please have a look at the forum. So now, we propose to change the liquidity mining rewards as follows. First, increase SUV rewards for the XUSD BTC pool from 15,000 SUV to 25,000 SUV per week. The XUSD BTC pool is the one with the largest trading volume. We would like to increase the liquidity in this pool, and we hope to increase the volume of the DApp with this measure. Weekly cost per 1 BTC trade volume in this pool is currently 0.0078 BTC. Second, reduce SOV rewards for the mint BTC pool from 15,000 SUV to 5,000 SUV per week. The mint pool has a very low trading volume and a very low liquidity when compared with other SUV reward pools. And at the same time, the highest APY of all pools, even more than the SUV pool. We want to bring this pool closer to the others. The liquidity in the pool is not efficiently used. Also, the bonding curve app is now live. Weekly cost per 1 BTC trade volume in this pool, 0.29 BTC. Third, reduce rewards for the ETH BTC pool from 15,000 SUV to 5,000 SUV per week. The ETH pool has very good liquidity, but this liquidity has not really been used. ETH does not have a systemic relevance for the Sovryn protocol. We hope that this measure could move some of the liquidity to more important pools like the XUSD BTC pool. Weekly cost per 1 BTC trade volume in this pool is 0.028 BTC. Fourth, cut the SUV rewards for the BNB pool from 15,000 SUV per week to 0. This pool has barely been used and it's running on a huge loss for a long time now. BNB has no systemic relevance to the DApp. Neither the bridge nor the perps are affected by this measure. Of course, we may lose a lot of liquidity here. It remains to be seen whether the liquidity will leave our system or reappear in other pools. In any case, borrowing BNB BTC liquidity is anything but economical, and that is why we want to stop it. Weekly cost per 1 BTC trade volume in this pool is 0.115 BTC. The circle will closely monitor the pools. We will collect data on what changes there are in the pools and whether these changes are working as intended. It is likely that we will propose further changes or partially reverse changes based on the reactions in the data, if this proposal finds acceptance. In total, these measures would reduce SUV rewards by 25,000 SUV per week. Instead of 450,000 SUV per month, there would then only be 343,000 reward SUV per month paid out. Due to the 10-month vesting, the effect of the reduced SUV distribution will probably only be seen after a few months. There is also ongoing research on the topic of liquid rewards. I would also like to point out that there already has been some discussion in the forum and some critics to our proposal. On the one hand, critics about impermanent loss, which is admittedly very high at present, especially in the SUV and mint pool. This is at least partly due to the fact that SUV rewards are far too high and the market has not been able to absorb the oversupply of liquid SUV in recent months. This is exactly what we want to change with our measures. On the other hand, it is about the fact that the real rewards have been a bit lower than expected for some time, because the reward API calculates with block times of 30 seconds, while the real block times are rather between 32 and 33 seconds. One more remark, we are not proposing this to repel people. We believe that we need changes to the token inflation rate and liquidity mining rewards to make Sovryn fit for the future. We want to stabilize the token price and we want to achieve a good staking API to increase the fundamental value of the SUV token. We want to make the rewards and liquidity mining sustainable and still rewarding in pools that are valuable to Sovryn. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Sacro. This is really
Thank you very
great
much,
work.
Sacro.
That was awesome. That is really it's extremely great work, and I want to thank everyone who was involved in the hard work of the Circle of Tokens and putting that together. I think it would be really, really great if those of you who are on this call and are currently providing liquidity mining rewards, or would consider doing so in light of the changes proposed. If you guys could speak up and give some of your opinions, that would be awesome. Also, if anyone has questions about that, anything we've heard.
Sacro, where do you stand regarding making the tokens liquid?
I have written a forum thread around it. I think it's a very, very difficult task. It would have a lot of benefits, especially with regarding the calculation of impermanent loss, but also with regards to changing rewards more frequently based on the data. But I don't think that we can do it for all pools immediately. It would have to be a slow process over a longer time period, because otherwise, with all the liquid SUV, there would be too much SUV coming to the market in the short term. And I think it would be very likely that this would crash the price even more.
Ororo, do you have thoughts on potentially ratcheting it down in terms of we could maybe, go from a 10-month lockup period to a 7-month lockup period with 3 months with what would have been 30% immediately liquid, and then maybe go up to half, and have a gradual process of introducing a higher degree of liquidity in these pools, and potentially
Yeah, that's very similar to what I wanted to suggest. So we have the option to specify each time we are transferring rewards to the pool, which is collecting all of the rewards where you're then claiming from. We can specify how much of the rewards are supposed to be liquid and how much should be vested. So we can set whatever percentage we would want to. So we could start with 10% being liquid, then 20% being liquid, 30% being liquid. What is not very easy is what Iago, you just suggested, with reducing the vesting duration, because this would mean that we would need to deploy a new vesting contract, which then again means for everyone who's getting reward SOV that they would not have just one contract where they're withdrawing from, but they have multiple contracts where they have to withdraw from, and then therefore also multiple times the transaction costs to withdraw from them. So I think it would be preferable to, instead of changing the vesting duration, changing the ratio between what is liquid immediately and what is going to be vested.
More of the tokens liquid. Let's say we made 10% of the tokens liquid. Do you think, and this is a question to all of you, we could potentially even reduce amount of tokens that we are providing to the pools more dramatically? And I think, Sacro, one key question I would have around this is what amount of SOV do we need to distribute to offset impermanent loss? Because that would provide us with a strong baseline around which, that would be like the minimum we would want to provide, perhaps, and then on top of that, it becomes easier for us to say, this is a 20% APY or a 10% APY.
Yes, I cannot answer the question right now. It's a bit complicated with the 10-month vesting. But just today we had a call in our circle, and we are working to get that data for you.
I can try to elaborate on that, since I've been taking a stab at doing the impermanent loss analysis. The difficulty is impermanent loss is very individualized, right? We can't just sit here and say, oh, hey, it's X% of impermanent loss that has applied to everybody, because the impermanent loss can be very different depending on how long and at what point in time a person first put into the pool, and then when they withdrawed, and then kind of as Sacro alluded to, as to when they're getting those SOV versus the price drop 10 months from now. So any analysis that we put out with impermanent loss has to kind of come with these disclaimers of like, but it's with this, frame of context. Like we looked at it only during this like 1 week snapshot. Like there's no singular right answer to say, hey, this is the impermanent loss and this is the perfect amount of reward that can offset it. There's just too many moving puzzle pieces. So we're working on it, but I just kind of want to give that disclaimer there.
Thank you.
Right. Like what benchmarks do we want to really go by? Do we want to go by the last 3 months, the last month? there's a lot to factor in.
One more question for Sacro, and this is, you were suggesting different liquidity mining reward changes to the AMM pools, but we also have liquidity mining rewards for the XUSD lending pool. Are you suggesting to change anything about that as well?
No, not yet. We have not looked at the lending pool. We know that there is also a considerable amount of SUV that is paid out. No, but we have not looked at it. And I don't have strong opinions about it. I really don't know.
I would just would say to that one that it might very well be much preferable to provide money to the XUSD lending pool over to the XUSD RBTC pool, AMM pool, because the lending pool is not having impermanent loss. It's currently having the same SOV rewards. So if you are an XUSD holder, or in general you have stable coins you would like to get yield on, I think that with the current structure, we're incentivizing people more to supply their funds to the lending pool than to the AMM pool. And I think that we should look that the AMM pool is more strongly incentivized because that's the pool which is relevant for our pricing. And the XUSD pool, lending pool, needs just enough incentivation to make sure that we are having enough liquidity to enable margin trading.
The only thing I'd like to add to that is that, I mean, while I completely understand that point, that it may work a little differently in practice. The one thing that we have to keep in mind here is within permanent loss, it's not always the case. I mean, people potentially can suffer impermanent loss in the yield farming, in the paired pools, but it's not always the case. I mean, there's oftentimes where people can benefit from those pools when the price action is going in the opposite direction. I mean, currently right now, sure, impermanent loss is a real thing. So that's another thing that we need to take into consideration as well, is that it's not just a one-sided, one direction way of going. I mean, in the past, I've provided liquidity in those pools and have fared pretty well when the price was moving in a different direction. So that's worth considering as well. Also, in the in the XUSD lending pool, I'll dox myself a little bit here. So I use that pool as well. I do believe that the functionality of the rewards there probably work pretty well, given the fact of how that the XUSD pool is is well funded, and when people are borrowing against it, there's liquidity there. We may not be that far off in that particular pool, but I think with the paired pools, I believe with the yield farming, I believe that that definitely deserved a closer look, because some of them were just not really utilized, and the ones that are, I think adjustments are certainly in order there. But I think we just need to keep in mind that it's not always, impermanent loss is always a real thing, but it's not always a thing, if that makes sense.
Ororo, following up on your question around the XUSD pool, can you confirm what are the revenue drivers that we get from that on Sovryn side? Like, we generate fees from margin trading when they borrow XUSD. Is there anything else? Because that would help us then look at the graph and kind of see the bang for the buck that we're getting. We want to make sure we're not missing anything.
There are 3 different fees. One is the trading fee, which is applied every time there is a margin trade happening. Then there's the origination fees for borrowing. So if someone just borrows from the pool, there's a fee as well. And then there's the lending fee, which is paid by the lenders, and it's taken from the interest. And if I remember correctly, the settings are 0.15% trading fee, 0.09% origination fee for borrowing, and 10% lending fee, which means that 10% of the interest earned goes to the protocol.
Great. I think we'll be able to use that and kind of do some deeper analysis. And then I guess while I'm just asking you questions, we've talked about it before, but I think it'd be helpful for the community to understand that if we do wind down the rewards on these pools, which we plan on doing, you know, can you maybe mention like why there is or isn't any kind of risk to the protocol, and like what if we remove the rewards and effectively nobody's trading and then liquidity just drains down? Like what's the risk to that? Because I think some people feel that we're kind of imprisoned by the rewards, that we have to keep the liquidity in there, otherwise something bad is going to happen.
I think that while it's true that the yield farming helps to keep liquidity just because the rewards are higher, and but I think that especially for the lending pool, there is a lot of incentivization apart from the liquidity mining rewards, because you are getting interest and the interest payments are not that low. So if we would remove the liquidity mining rewards, it might be that liquidity is leaving the system, and this means that as funds are being withdrawn from the lending pool, the utilization rate is increasing, and the interest rate is depending on the utilization rate. So if the utilization rate goes up, the interest rate also goes up, which means that the liquidity providers earn more XUSD. And if your interest goes up from 5% to 8%, for example, then it is again incentivizing for new liquidity providers to add more funds to the pool, because they also want to have a share of the cake. So the lending pools are already constructed in a way that even without additional liquidity mining rewards, there is a lot of incentivization. So I think it might even work just as well without liquidity mining rewards at all, but I might also be mistaken. So if all of it would be removed, except those which is borrowed, then this would have, of course, the negative side effect that we could not create new trades, we could not take out new loans, but it would also mean that we would have very, very high lending rates. So it should not take too much time until new funds are entering the system.
All right, we're coming up towards the end. Do we have any questions from the audience on anything mentioned thus far?
Well, yes, I'm here. First of all, I want to say a warm welcome to Wayne. Glad we have you here.
Thank you very much.
Well, I wish you all the best in this rough environment. And well, good luck and all the best from this side.
Thank you.
And one thing, it's an idea, it came in the dojo a few times on the rewards, is why can't we have like incentivize the action we want to see, like the 10 months vesting, or have it staked at a minimum time of 10 months, like decide at the point of reward withdrawal, decide if you want to have it vested for like 10 months, or stake it all right now for a minimum time of 10 months. Or maybe give it a third option of having a little bit, like a fraction of those rewards, have it right now liquid, or get the 10 months vesting, or stake it all together right now, but for a minimum time of 10 months, something like that.
That's a lot of options.
True. But basically, the idea was to have the calendar where you can pick your poison, so to say, on how long you want to stake. If you're coming from the route of having a reward, you don't have any options then 10 months plus in the future to stake it all right now, so it doesn't go into the vesting contract, but into the staking contract. If that's a feasible option, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's theoretically definitely possible, and a good point to consider.
I have a small opinion on this. I think one of the discussions we've had in the circle of tokens is there's no shortage of ideas, right? But what we do have a shortage of is dev resources. And sometimes I feel like Ororo probably listens to these and says, wow, okay, like we can do that, but like, do we have the time and resources? And I think what we've been trying to brainstorm in the circle of tokens is what ideas can we immediately implement that take little to zero technical debt, that can give us enough data points to then we can definitively take it to the dev team and say, hey, this is an idea, this is working, let's implement it. So I think that was Tom who was speaking. It'd be great if you kind of like, message us or post on the forum some of these ideas, and we can think about these ways of like, how can we emulate these without actually making the code change? And then we can go to the graph data and say, is it working or is it not? And so we'll kind of do this like rough work first before we finalize it. So I definitely think the ideas are welcomed, but we do have to acknowledge, our resources and everything that we request the dev team to do is taken away from very high priority things like, the SDK and Zero and Perps.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, throwing ideas around isn't hard. Of course, it's an idea, nothing more. I just wanted to throw it there for maybe it is fruitful, maybe not, maybe it's hard, maybe it's easy, I don't know. But I will post it on the forum and let's see.
Yeah, perfect. One idea I'll just kind of mention here is like, if we look at the data in the graph and we say, hey, we have this idea, we can maybe even set up just like a multi-sig wallet that exchequer funds, and then we can have a very simple script where we can manually disperse and kind of target where we want some of these rewards to go. And so that's something that we don't need the dev work to do, but we can just experiment with. So ideas like this, let's keep the conversations going. So thanks.
And with that, we're totally clear to have more conversations on this community call, but I will close out the recording. So Hanzico, feel free to push the stop button. And I want to thank everyone here for joining us and being a part of our mission to carve out a trail for Bitcoin secured financial sovereignty, dismantling what people know and understand about money. So help us spread the word and create more sovereign individuals. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Telegram. Twitter is SovrynBTC. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and visit our DApp at sovryn.app. So this ends the recording, and now the off-the-record chat begins now, and